Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast, hosted by Kristen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Clark. The Collide Kids podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. It means so much to me that you're listening today. Thank you so much for being here. If this is your first time listening, I just want to say welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Be sure to listen to the end of every episode. That's where we have the kids only segment where kids just like you get to be on the podcast. Well, like I said last week, for the month of April, we are all about books and I am loving it. And I'm so excited for you guys to meet our next author today. And I know all my readers are really excited about this month. I think you're really going to love the variety of books that I'm presenting this week. It's a lot of fun. But I also wanted to announce again that we are doing a spring giveaway and I have details on my social media all about that giveaway this week. So be sure to check out my social media. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. And I would love for you to be a part of this giveaway so you can get some really cool books. I also am excited about my guests coming up in May. There's just so many fun things that are happening on the podcast. So keep following and subscribing and listening to the show. I think you guys are really going to enjoy what's coming up next. Well, if you want all these updates sent to your inbox and you want to be the first to know about every episode, then you can sign up for my brand new monthly newsletter. So if you go to my website, collidekidspodcast.com, there's a little pop-up window that'll let you in on some fun things and you can sign up to be a part of that newsletter. Well, like I said before, I'm really excited about our guest today. Her name is Meredith Davis. She is the author of the middle grade fiction novels, The Minor Miracle and The Minor Rescue, which is coming out in 2025. She is also the co-author of Her Own 2 Feet, A Rwandan Girl's Brave Fight to Walk, which came out in 2019 and earned her lots of awards, including the World Magazine's Children's Book of the Year. And she's now releasing the first of a brand new series that I think your older elementary kids and middle schoolers are going to love because it's all about superpowers. Meredith's superpowers include reading, grandmothering, and finding ways to fit more books into her Austin, Texas home. Here is my conversation with Meredith Davis. Well, Meredith Davis, I am so excited to have you on the Collide Kids podcast today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, this is great. And this month, the month of April, all of my episodes have to do with books and authors and children's books. And so I'm really excited to talk to you. Would you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and what your book is called.
So my name is Meredith Davis, and I am a writer. I'm a reader. I'm also a mother. I'm a grandmother of a little 2-year-old boy.
Aww.
My first book came out in 2019, and it's called Her Own 2 Feet, and it was a nonfiction for kids. And then my next book comes out May 7th, and it's called The Minor Miracle, and it's the first of a series. So it's book 1.
Very exciting. So it's a series. Is it like mystery and things like that?
I would say it's kind of a little bit of a fantasy. It's a superhero story. So if you call superhero fantasy, that's what it is. It's all about superpowers and it's about a kid and his friends. So it's a friendship story too, but it's very grounded in the real world. So they're at school, they're going to karate, but there's superheroes in there. So far there's 2 books. I just finished the second book. So the first book comes out May 7th and it's exciting. I'm really happy about it.
I love that. That sounds like so much fun. And I love a good series. You know, when there's a really good book 1, then you want to have that good book 2. So I'm glad that you're already writing that and we're excited for all the series to come out.
Thank you.
Well, good. Well, before we talk about your book that's coming out, I always ask my guests to tell me a joke because this is a podcast for kids, you know. So do you have a joke for us today?
Oh, I have the perfect joke for you. So how does Spider-Man keep his secret identity safe?
Ooh, I don't know.
By staying off the web.
That's so true. Yep. If he got on there, he would totally tell it. I like that one. He needs to stay off the web. That's good.
Yep. I like that one too. And it's a superhero story. So it's a superhero joke.
Yes, perfect. So let's talk about your book. Tell me a little bit about why you wanted to write something about superheroes.
That's a great question. So as a kid, I think I always felt a little bit ordinary. I was a little bit shy. I wasn't the one that would win first place. I wasn't the one that got the awards and stuff. And I also loved to read. And a lot of the books that I loved to read were about kids kind of doing crazy things and amazing things, whether it was fiction or nonfiction. I read mostly fiction as a kid. And so as I grew up, I started realizing, hey, we all are actually pretty incredible, especially when I had kids. And I started seeing all of these giftings that my kids did and they had. And I saw my kids comparing themselves to other people like we all do. And it can be so hard to see that person over there that got the first place. And we tried so hard, but we didn't place at all, or we only got third place. And so I really wanted to teach them that they've all got these amazing gifts, and it may not be gifts that the world is celebrating, but it's gifts that could change the world. And so with this book, I'm hoping that I'm reaching a lot more kids with that same message, because I think it's really, really important that we recognize that we all have these really cool gifts, and it may be like that you're super patient or that you're a really good friend, and there's nobody out there handing out awards for best friend, but it could change someone's life. And so that was kind of the reason I wanted to write Noah Minor.
I love that. I think that's so true, that we all have these things in us that sometimes don't get celebrated at all or even acknowledged, but we know we're good at them, or maybe we need to discover that there's something that we're good at that we don't even know about. So let's talk a little bit about that. If I wanted to be a superhero, how could I do that? How could I figure out what my superpower is?
Ooh, first of all, find out what it is and then lean into it. Well, one way is to talk to other people. You can talk to your parents, you can talk to your friends, you can say, hey, what do you think I'm good at? And if you've got good friends, they've been watching and they can tell you that. They can say, hey, when you stuck up for me in the lunchroom the other day, or hey, when you sent me that note, that was like such a nice note, and maybe your parents are seeing it. And so I would, first of all, receive that information. I think sometimes we're like, oh, that's okay, I'm not that good. Or we still compare ourselves. We're like, well, maybe I'm a good friend, but that's a better friend. Mm-hmm. So listen to what people are telling you and then lean into it. So like one of the things I like to tell kids is how even something as small as a smile can really change someone's life. Mm-hmm. And I have some examples of that from my first book, actually. And so I think once you figure out what that is, start using it more, start leaning into it. So if you've been told that you're a superpower, what if it's being patient? And so it's like, hey, when other people are like tapping their foot and getting grouchy because it's taken too long, you just settle in and you wait in line and you're peaceful about it and it's not a big deal. Maybe you can start sharing your strategies with other people. If you're really brave and bold and you're good for sticking up for people, look for the people around you that maybe are getting ignored and go sit down next to them in the lunchroom or go be their advocate to other people. So those are just a couple of examples. But I think first you got to figure out what it is. Mm-hmm. And then second of all, just be imaginative with how you can use that thing.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's interesting too, because when we think about having superpowers, we think about being able to fly or super strength or things like that, that's part of fantasy. And those are fun things to imagine. But there really are some things in us that when someone does something kind for us, like you said, when someone smiles at us or someone sticks up for us, that means so much more than anyone flying around me, right? So we really want to think about there's so many things that we could do for others or that others have done for us that are really super and lean into those things. So that's such good advice. Now, how can these everyday superpowers change people's lives? Like, how could we change the world with that?
Okay, well, I'll give you two examples. One from the book, The Minor Miracle. So we've got in this book some kids that have superpowers, like real superpowers. They can manipulate gravity, which is so cool. And then we've got some other kids that are just kind of normal kids. Well, so one of those boys, his name is Rodney, and he's really good at playing the trumpet. And so this might sound like a little thing, but it can be a big deal. So he's really good at playing trumpet. Everybody kind of recognizes him for that. He's first chair in band, and it's a good gift. The other thing that Rodney is kind of bold in who he is. So there's some kids that make fun of him and they're like, oh, you're just a band kid. You're not important. You're not an athlete like me. But Rodney, instead of getting hurt feelings from that, he kind of leans into it and he's like, yeah, and let me play you a song. And he uses his sense of humor to make people laugh and to just make more friends. And so how does that change the world? Well, he sticks up for another friend. And in the course of that, it gives that friend the confidence that he needs to move forward. And so without giving too much away or any spoilers, I would just say that a sense of humor is definitely a superpower. It can break the ice. It can diffuse tension. So all of a sudden, the bully that might be like being mean to you or calling you names is laughing. Oh, that really changes everything. And when I was a kid, I loved books that made me laugh. That's one example from The Minor Miracle. The other book, Her Own 2 Feet, that's a book about a real girl. She's from Rwanda, and she has a condition called arthrogryposis that turned her feet so that she actually walked on the tops of her feet. And she ended up coming to America and living with her family for about a year and having surgeries to correct her feet. And so then she went back home, walking on the bottoms of her own 2 feet. So that's just a very short synopsis. Well, one of the things I tell the kids is how powerful her smile was. It just so happened that my husband went to Rwanda, and he was meeting with her family, had no intention of ever meeting Rebecca. That's her name, Rebecca. Rebecca, at this point, was walking on the tops of her feet. She was very small and she was very shy. And I tell kids, you know what? She could have hidden inside when Clay came to her house to meet her family. She could have been very shy. But instead, she came out and she smiled, this beautiful smile. Rebecca's got this gorgeous smile. And my husband noticed that. In fact, he noticed her smile before he noticed her feet. And because of that, he ended up taking pictures of her feet and showing them to doctors here in America. And that's what actually ended up getting her here, were some of those pictures and those connections that people made to Rebecca. But if she had stayed inside and she hadn't used her superpower of that smile, none of that would have happened. So, you know, something as small as a smile, something as small, I put in quote marks, it's not really small, being a good friend. One of the things that Noah Minor is going to recognize in The Minor Miracle in the end is the importance of sacrifice. So he's so concerned with the whole book, with himself, and how do I get my powers, and how do I use my powers, and how am I going to be like a superhero, like I've always wanted to be. And in the end, he's going to realize the power of friendship and of like kind of laying down his life to help somebody else, and how that can be just as powerful. When you don't look at yourself, when you look at other people, that's like a sacrifice, but it can make a difference to that person. It can be powerful.
That is so true. Oh, I love that. And I love the story about Rebecca. I'm excited to check out that other book as well. So I love that you're talking about this, about recognizing those things that we have, those small things that we can do can really change the world. What would you say your superpower is?
Oh, I think that one of my biggest superpowers is reading and writing. So for me, writing, and because I've been so fortunate and worked with some great publishers and got these real physical books in other kids' hands, I've been able to share those stories with other kids, and that is a huge superpower. And I don't take it lightly. As I'm writing these books, I'm actually figuring out what I want to say and what kind of important things do I want to tell in a fun story. Like, it's not heavy. You don't pick up The Minor Miracle and think, oh, this is a big, important, heavy book. But it has important themes in it. And I always want to give a kid a message that they can take with them that could change potentially their lives. I think of these books as like connections and almost like a spider web. Every time I send out that book and a kid picks it up and they read it, I'm connected to that kid. I may never know their name. I may never hear their story. Sometimes I get to, sometimes they'll send me letters and I am just like, wow, I can't wait to start getting mail for The Minor Miracle because I got lots of letters for Her Own 2 Feet. In fact, I got some letters from kids that have arthrogryposis or have had surgeries and have been like courageous and brave and strong because of Rebecca's story. And I think, what? Like, that's amazing that like this book and these pages can like change a life. So I'm just trusting that it will continue to happen, that God will continue to use me in ways that would reach into classrooms and reach into kids' lives and be able to change their lives. So being a writer, and I tell this to kids too, like right now you're learning how to be writers in school. Mm-hmm. And maybe your teacher gives you back a paper and you have to change it and you have to revise it. And that's no fun. I have to do that too. Like, the first thing I write is not the thing that you're going to read. And I go through big revisions and get lots of scratch outs and lots of things that I have to change. And it kind of makes me sad or it makes me angry. But ultimately, it makes my writing better. So that's another really important thing that I talk about with kids is suffering and how suffering can make us stronger. And when we're in the middle of it, it is no fun to suffer or to hear a no or to hear this isn't good enough. And you might think, well, then that's not my gift. Like, if I thought that, I'd never write a book. I hear that all the time. Meredith, it's not good enough. Try harder. And so don't get discouraged if you think that your gift is this thing, but then it's not working out. Keep trying. Persevere. Be determined. I just got someone to tell me her superpower the other day. This girl, she said, my superpower is determination because I have arthrogryposis and I've had surgeries on my feet, but I'm determined to walk on my feet.
Wow.
I got goosebumps. So I have a website, and on the website, you can go enter your superpower. Anybody can. You go on the website, Meredith Davis, and you say, this is my superpower, and I'll put it in a boom bubble and I'll add it. So I've got all these superpowers on the page. People have started sending them to me. So I love to celebrate other people's powers.
That's so good. I think sometimes we think, oh, I don't want to brag on myself, or I don't want to say, if I say something kind about myself, people might think that I think I'm better than everyone else. But really, if we are leaning into the way that God made us, right? And we're leaning into the things that God has put inside us, and we're recognizing this is how I can be used by God. Like you said, I'm a writer and I'm a reader. That's how God is using you. That's how you're making an impact in the world. It's okay for you to tell people that this is what you're good at. And then by you saying that, it inspires someone else to recognize something within them. So I think it is important that we don't want to be proud about it in a way that makes other people feel bad, but I think we do want to be celebrating ourselves and celebrating our friends when we see something good in them.
Absolutely. I mean, another superpower is lifting other people up. Like some people, I have some friends and they are so good at it. Like they're so good at celebrating other people. Like how cool of a gift is that? And they'll probably never get celebrated for that because they're always pushing somebody else up. Right. But hopefully those friends that are being lifted up are turning around and telling them thank you and telling them how important they are.
Yeah. That's such good encouragement too for those people that are good encouragers. They need to keep it up because it means a lot. Okay, tell me a little bit more about the process of writing the book. You talked a little bit about the editing process, which that's interesting because we feel like, oh, I did a great job. And then you turn it in and they're like, not good enough. Tell me about your writing process. What is it like coming up with ideas and putting it all together? What's your favorite part in that whole process?
Oh gosh. So I think at every stage I have favorite parts and then I have like parts that are so painful. So, it starts with an idea and that's always like, yes, this is my favorite part. I'm so excited. I can't wait to write this down. And then you start writing it down and you're like, what now? And then you kind of get into, I call it the murky middle. So you're trying to figure it out. And so then I go grab books that I like, and I go grab some books that talk about writing, and I get all these influences, and I listen to lots of good books on audiobook, or I read lots of good books. I start getting more ideas and I start writing, and I'm like, oh, it's this way. And I'll have a really good day where I write a bunch of words. Maybe I write like 1,000 words that day, and I'm so excited about them. And I finish and I tell my husband, oh, it was so great. This is going to be great. The next day I go back and I read it with fresh eyes, and maybe not all of it's as great as I thought. And so I have to start again, or maybe I have to revise it. And so that's just a process that takes, like for the second book that I just finished of The Minor Miracle, it took about 3 months to do a draft, which is fast. Like my first book, it might have taken like a year to write, but this one was like 3 months. So then I was so excited. Like here's another favorite part. When you have something that you finished and you feel good about it, it feels so good to like send it to the editor or send it to the agent or whoever, your readers, and say, look what I've done. And that's a favorite part. Then you go through the revision process. One of my least favorite parts is getting like a 12-page letter of all the things that need to change. And I'm like, ugh. And then what I do, my process, when I get something that feels overwhelming, like I don't even know what to do with this, it just feels too big of a problem, I start writing myself a letter. Oh, and then I have an idea. Somehow my brain works best when I'm writing. And so I write my ideas down. I write. And then I start a new document. And I call it my deleted document. And on that document, every time I make a change and I cut something, I put it on my deleted document. So because I'm always afraid. I'm really afraid that I'll lose it and I won't be able to find it again. And so I don't like to just throw my words away. I put them on this deleted document. By the time I get through that revision, my deleted document is longer than my brand new manuscript. I'll cut more than I keep. And then I write all this new stuff. So even though like the shape of it may be not too far off, I end up changing all these things. And I say that not as a discouragement, but an encouragement that like, I feel like writers are wells and we can't be stingy with what we have. We have to keep giving it. And as we give it, it's going to fill back up again. And so the more that you write and revise and keep digging into that story, don't worry that you won't have any more words left. They're going to keep on filling. So I get into that process, I come through it again, and I'll tell you what, one of the coolest things about working with a publisher is all of the really cool friendships and collaborations that happen. Like you would have no idea how many people touch this this book. There's proofreaders and copy editors. There's the design team that decide like what words to put on the page and where to put the illustrations. There's the illustrator who's amazing, who's so exciting. Like I've met this great friend and he lives in Singapore. There's the editor. We get really close as we go back and forth. And she's like this huge advocate for the book and is out there just talking about it. She's the one that sold it to the publisher in the first place and said, this is the thing we want to work on. There's salespeople. There's just so many people that take a chance on this book. And so I try and celebrate them. I put a note to them in the back of the book and name them. So those are all exciting. Like it's really exciting to be in this part with the Minor Miracle, this stage of like, now I'm getting ready to share it. But like you talked about earlier, like maybe we feel like we're bragging sometimes and we shouldn't feel that way. That's how I feel right now. So when I go out and I talk about the Minor Miracle, I try and think of it like a child. Because if I'm like, look what I did, it's amazing, everybody go buy it, then I feel like I'm bragging. But if I'm like, look what happened with everybody's help. Look at this cool message that's in here. I think it might be important for you. I can get behind that. So I'm ready to start like sharing that. It gets me excited.
Thanks for sharing that process. I think that's really interesting that you save your words. I would understand that would make me sad if I had to cut out something I worked really hard on. So you just save it for something else and just put it somewhere where you can look at it later. That's really smart. I love that. You never know. Thank you for sharing that. What is something that you have learned about your relationship with God in being an author? We'll be right back after this. You know, raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.
Well, one thing I definitely have learned is that I'm not in control. So it's been really fun after the book to look back at all of the ways that God was involved in that process, and then to look forward and imagine all the things he's going to do. You know, I've gone full circle with that first book, Her Own 2 Feet, which was amazing miracle. Like I never thought that I would write that book when Rebecca was living with us and having surgeries on her feet. But I was a writer. In fact, I had actually written a copy of the Minor Miracle when Rebecca was with us. Okay, so here's some ways that God used that. While Rebecca was with us, I ended up signing with my agent that I still have. So an agent is someone that's between me and the publisher. She's the one that gets my manuscript and then goes out there and finds somebody who will publish it. And so she knew about Rebecca, but I wasn't writing a story about Rebecca right then. And so she went out and we started working on all these other manuscripts. Well, 4 years later, after Rebecca was back home, my agent said, you know, that was such a good story. You blogged about it. People really responded to that story. Maybe you should write that as a book. And so I feel like this is all God working in this story. And so I went to Rwanda and I asked Rebecca. I knew I didn't want to write it myself. So we partnered and we wrote that as co-authors. And so we were like, okay, let's write it. I don't know if it'll get published. Well, then in that process, when I was in Rwanda, I met a woman named Bumi Ashola. And she was a teacher and she was helping teachers in Rwanda. And I was like, oh, she's Nigerian American. And so I thought maybe she could read this book and give me some advice about writing a book with an African and how is this going to appeal to people in America. And she did that. If you look at the back of that first book, Her Own 2 Feet, you'll see a thank you to Bumi. So we published that book. It did amazing. Wow. Bumi went on in her life. She stopped teaching. She decided to work in publishing. And so then she ended up moving to a couple of publishers and ended up at a publisher called Waterbrook. Well, it came time for us to send out the Minor Miracle. And my agent was like, hey, you know this woman Bumi, right? I think this might be a good fit for her. And Bumi is my editor. This woman that I met when I was working on a totally another book. And so I totally think that that was God working in that to connect all of the dots. And so I can't wait to see how he's going to continue connecting those dots as I go forward. Because it's kind of scary to put out a book. Like you're like, what if people don't like it? What if I get really bad reviews? Or what if nobody reads it? What if it doesn't sell? But I just have to trust that there's a reason that I wrote it. I wrote for many, many, many years before I even got published. And God was working in my life to teach me to be patient and to wait on his timing. And it worked out so great. Like the timing of Her Own 2 Feet was amazing. And the timing of The Minor Miracle is amazing. Like now I don't have children at home. I've got more free time to be able to do author visits, just so many things. Sorry, but that was a long answer, but I get excited when I start connecting those dots.
No, and I'm a podcast host, so I love long answers.
Yeah, good.
So that was great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think too, it's really important for us to always to look for ways that God connects our story. And so I love that you've seen that God's shown you how all these things connected. And so that's really cool. I love that. Well, this has been so great, Meredith. Thank you so much for sharing about your writing process and about your new book. Where can our listeners find out how to order a copy of The Minor Miracle?
You can all go look on my website, and you can also tell me your superpower on my website, and that's www.meredithldavis.com. And then the book will be sold all over the place. You can pre-order it now on Amazon. You can pre-order it on Bookshop, Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy your books. You can go on right now and enter The Minor Miracle, and you can pre-order it, which is just like, you know what? I talked about little things that can change people's lives, like those little pre-orders that you think are not a big deal. It means that on May 7th, you'll get your book, but you just decided to order it in ahead of time. And people look at those numbers and they think, oh, are people interested in this book or not? Well, she's got a lot of pre-orders. She's got like 100 or 200 pre-orders. People must really be excited about it. It could change my life. So I appreciate any pre-orders or anybody that just wants to buy my book.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely go check that out and pre-order the book if you can. And I think your family would really love enjoying this book and then knowing that book 2 is coming out soon too. So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Before I let you go, I always ask my guests to tell me a memory from when they were a kid. So do you have a memory you want to share with us today?
I have such a good memory. So you might remember that I talked about Rodney, who is one of the characters in The Minor Miracle, and Rodney plays the trumpet. A lot of things in The Minor Miracle, I drew on things that happened to me when I was a kid or things that I know about. And so one of those things is playing trumpet. So I played trumpet in middle school, and we called it a cornet. When you first start, sometimes you start on a cornet. And so I was really good at it. It was kind of a superpower. I was first chair.
Oh, wow.
And I was the only girl in the cornet section. So I thought that was kind of cool that I was girl and I was first chair. So here I am, first chair. So something you may not know about playing the cornet is that obviously you're blowing through the mouthpiece and your spit is going through the instrument and then finally coming out the bell. So it gets kind of yucky in there. And so every once in a while when you play a note, it gets kind of gurgly. And so they have this thing called a spit valve. And so you open the spit valve and you blow through it and it blows all the spit out so that it doesn't gurgle. Right? Mm-hmm. Well, so because there's spit inside your cornet, we were told that we should sometimes give our instrument a bath, which is kind of a pain. But I had decided I needed to go ahead and bathe my cornet. So I went home, I filled up the bathtub, I put my cornet down in there, I rinsed it out, and then I kind of shook it out, got all the water out of it, and went to band the next day. So I'm standing first chair, standing up, playing the cornet, and my instrument is gurgling. And the band director says, Meredith, I think you need to empty your spit valve. So everybody's looking at me. I open my spit valve and I blow through it, and a huge amount of water splats on the riser. And everybody thought it was spit, but it was bath water that didn't make it out the night before. And so it was probably one of my most embarrassing moments.
Oh.
I was horrified. And in fact, ended up playing the oboe instead, partly because of that embarrassing moment, because the oboe does not have a spit valve. And I got really good at the oboe.
There you go. Well, it changed the course of your life.
So I'm just to tell you guys, I hope that story makes you laugh, because I love to laugh and I love to make people laugh. And also just to remember to always make sure all the water is out of your trumpet.
Empty your spit valve. That's our PSA for today.
Yes.
Well, Meredith, thank you so much for sharing that and for being on the show today. This was great meeting you, and I'm excited about your book.
Thank you so much. It was a joy to be here. I really had fun.
I just love learning about how books are made and how books come together. It's not just the author. There are so many people involved in the publishing process. And so I think it's so amazing that Meredith filled us in a little bit on what that was like and how she put this book together. I love when she was sharing about how we can each learn what our superpower is. We all have a superpower. And the best way to learn about what your superpower is to ask your friends and family and look for ways that you're getting acknowledged or awarded or complimented, or maybe your grades reflect something that shows your superpower. Lean into it, Meredith said. She told us share our strategies and techniques with others, and then to be grateful for what it is that God made you to do instead of hiding it. A lot of times we don't want to celebrate ourselves and our achievements. It feels like bragging, but instead we can show how this great superpower and ability can help other people. Meredith said, you can change the world. And I believe that all it takes is one smile, one kind word, one glass of water. You never know how what you can do can help someone else and change their lives. I hope you guys will check out this book. So head over to meredithldavis.com and you can pre-order it now, or if it's already out into the world by the time you're listening to this, you should be able to find it anywhere books are sold. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So here is my friend Wesley sharing his favorite verse.
The Lord is mine shepherd. I shall not want. He make me down and green pasture. He leads me by the still water. He does store my soul. He lead me in paths that will watch the next. For his name's sake. Psalm 23, 1 through 3. Bye.
I love that he shared Psalm 23 verses 1 through 3 and did it so well. That was so good. I think his sister helped him put that together, but he did a really good job, didn't he? That's so cool. I love hearing kids say their favorite Bible verse. Well, if you would like to be on the podcast too, or maybe you want to do it with your brother or sister, maybe you want to do one on your own and share your favorite quote or a joke or your favorite Bible verse, just head over to my website, collidekidspodcast.com, and click the tab at the top that says Kids Only, or you can find information about how to send it to me through my social media as well. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at the Collide Kids Pod, and I would love for you to follow me there as well. You can learn more about giveaways and upcoming episodes. If you like to support the podcast, there's a few ways you can do that. First, be sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow it so that anytime new episodes come out, it will automatically load into your podcast app. And leave a rating and a review. It really does help the show when you leave a rating and review, and helps other people learn about it in case they want to listen too. You can also share this episode with friends and family on your social media, or text it to them, or just say, hey, listen up, as you crank up the volume on your phone and let them listen to the Collide Kids podcast with you. And anytime you think about it, I always appreciate your prayer support as well. Well, I hope you guys have an amazing week. I hope you get some time to get outside and enjoy the nice weather if it's beautiful where you are. And I hope you find some time to read a really great book. And in case no one has told you today, I would love to be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news, because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be, because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.